to see everybody here. Apologize about starting the meeting late. We had some traffic on Highway 71, and some of the board members were stuck in that. And I think we have a principal trying to get from Cedar Creek High School, Bridget, up this way, so we may move a few things around, so appreciate your patience and understanding. I call this meeting of the Bastrop Independent School District to order. Let the record show that a quorum of board members is present and that this meeting has been duly called and that a notice of this meeting has been posted in accordance with the Texas Open Meetings Act, Texas Government Code, Chapter 551. At this time, would you please rise and join us in the pledge and a word of prayer. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Texas flag. Honor the Texas flag. I pledge allegiance to thee, Texas, one state, under God, one and indivisible. All right, if you please remain standing. Joining us here tonight, we have Nick Henderson with the River Valley Christian Church to offer us a prayer for this evening. Nick, thank you again for coming out tonight.
Let's pray. Father God, we come before you and we just thank you for today. We praise you for the rain that we've had. We thank you for our community, and we thank you for our school district. Lord, we just lift them up to you, and we just pray for our students as they get in the routine of school again, that you just bless them and their families, and you keep them safe, and you give them the right amount of energy just to learn and not get too crazy in those classrooms. But Lord, we also just lift up those teachers as they get in their routine too, as they prepare for the year, that you give them energy and strength and kindness and love and all those things they need to teach those children and love on them. And Lord, we pray for all the administration, that central office, from the principals to the assistant principals, that you give them wisdom, give them clarity and direction as they make decisions to best educate these children, and for the betterment of their schools and for the whole school district, Lord, that you give them that wisdom, Lord. We pray for safety this school year. We pray that you watch over them in the classrooms, on the way to school and even on the way home, Lord, that you be with them, Lord. We thank you so much for being a mighty God and for sending your son Jesus to die on the cross for us, Lord. And we pray this in Jesus' name. Amen.
Amen. Amen. Nick, thank you again for coming out this evening. And Nick and I were just talking. Nick handles the operations of the church over there in River Valley, has graciously come out. And if it's Nick, it's Pastor Cody or some of the youth ministers come out and offer prayer. And everybody has a busy schedule. And Nick informed me that here in about 30 days, y'all are going to be doing about a $4 million expansion.
Yes.
And so out on Highway 71, I know you have a real active youth group, so it takes all of us to a village here to take care of these kids. And so we appreciate y'all helping us out here.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
Yes, sir. All right. At this time, Mr. Edwards, would you introduce our student speaker, please?
Yeah, that would be my pleasure. Is Viviana Munoz. I saw her bouncing around the room. There she is. Viviana Munoz is a fourth grader at Cedar Creek Elementary School, and she's going to speak to us this evening about honesty. Viviana is a very active young lady. She's involved with Girl Scouts and loves selling cookies. She likes to write and is in the middle of writing a series of books. Interesting, though, Viviana is not a huge fan of reading, but does enjoy a good book every now and then, but she expects us to read her books, of course. She is in cheerleading, but that's not her favorite thing to do. Her most favorite activity is playing with her baby sister, Cecilia. Viviana's parents are Aaron and Ruperto Munoz. Are they here? Can they give us? There they are, proud. Okay, Viviana, it's all yours.
Good evening, board members and Mr. Edwards. It is my pleasure to be here. Honesty is the best policy is a phrase that I have heard all my life. To be honest, you must always tell the truth about everything, no matter what happens. Let's say something happened on the playground and somebody tells on you. Don't say, I didn't do it, even if you did. Be honest. Don't let anybody change that about you. If you see somebody drop money, don't keep it. Return it to the right person. If you don't know who the right person is, then turn it into the office. To be honest with yourself, you must take time to think about the things, whether they have been right or wrong. The first person you must be honest with is yourself. This quote is by Mel Robbins. It means to me, before you can be honest with others, you must be honest with yourself. That doesn't mean you can tell a lie for the rest of your life. Try being honest. Remember, honesty takes practice. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Viviana.
awesome job, and really love that smile. So that's amazing. All right, at this time, Mr. Edwards, would you take us through our special recognitions, please?
I sure will. Thank you. Viviana, you did a great job. It's a tough act to follow for Dr. Lee. I'd like to ask Dr. Lee to come up to the podium and be as vivacious as Viviana.
Well, I don't know. Viviana, that is a tough act to follow. We do have a couple of recognitions tonight that are so exciting. One is an individual teacher at Bastrop High School, and the next we're going to recognize one of our departments. Trent Jimenez is a teacher at Bastrop High School. He teaches AP classes as well as dual credit government classes. Mr. Jimenez, would you like to come on up? And I'll tell a little bit more about why he's being recognized tonight. So the Phi Beta Kappa Alumni Association of Greater Austin created an award program to recognize teaching excellence, and not only teaching excellence, but a teacher who goes above and beyond in continuing to build their own capacity as a teacher. And so this is the inaugural year of their program, and he is one of 5 finalists in the Greater Austin area, and actually it extends well beyond Austin. It seemed like one of the schools was almost into San Antonio. And so he is one of the 5 finalists. The winner will be announced next month, and then in a special ceremony in November if he's selected. He would get $2,500, and Bastrop High School would get $500 for Mr. Jimenez to decide if maybe there's a project that he and Mr. Brown would like to complete on behalf of the students and staff at Bastrop High School. So we are so proud of him. Congratulations, and we look forward to whether or not he wins, just the fact that he was recognized by such an outstanding organization.
Mr. Jimenez, thank you for your dedication and perseverance and everything you do. I was reading some notes from Mr. Edwards, and I was in my recliner and going over and asked my wife, I said, do you know this Mr. Jimenez? And she goes, oh my God, he's awesome. He's unbelievable. The kids love him. The staff loves him. Said he just goes over and beyond. So sincerely, thank you for doing
Mr. Brown,
that.
would you like to add anything?
No, just what you said. Totally awesome. Kids respect him, love him. They want to be in his class. And the kids and the staff is better for having Trent on our staff, and we appreciate all he does to help us make better classes for our kids and help our teachers become better teachers too as well. So we're always willing to help and just can't say enough good things about him.
Mr. Edwards, would you like to come up and take
Sure.
a photo? If you gentlemen would just go straight ahead. No. What? Fantastic. Thank you. You all are aware that we hosted a school safety symposium here in Bastrop ISD that was attended by 325 approximately law enforcement and school district officials from around this area and the state. And it was very well received, and we're very proud of our police department for having put that together. Dr. Patricia Alford from Gateway decided that after she attended that she wanted to nominate our police department for the Texas School Safety Center's Spotlight program. And that's a quarterly award program. People are nominated. It could be a school or a district that's nominated in numerous categories. And so for the first quarter of this year, the Bastrop ISD Police Department was a Spotlight recipient for collaborative and community partnerships. And the way that the Texas School Safety Center describes that is an innovative program to establish or maintain collaborative working relationships beyond your school and a community partner. But it goes beyond what's required by law. So this is something in addition to that. So at this time, we want to invite our police department to come forward and be recognized. sure about the new officer in pink,
Yes,
but we really like having her.
Kid cop in training.
This is Cecilia, Viviana's big sister.
No wonder she likes playing with her.
Aw.
What? Okay. Let's get this a little better. So Dex and Colin and Chief, can y'all get maybe in the back? So we can take a good photo, or
Right
Franco?
there.
We're going to take a photo.
Without recognition.
Well, I asked for waffles. I really did, but he has a busy social life. Okay. Fantastic. Let's give them a round of applause.
Thanks.
Chief, I would like to definitely thank you and your officers. I remember the day when I was strongly encouraging Mr. Murray that we have to do something years ago, and informing something. And I know that at that time he cautioned us about image and news media and how it'd be perceived from the community and also surrounding communities and things like that. And you know, I'm just really amazed and very impressed with the image that our police department has, the professionalism, the ability to establish and communicate with children, and the relationships that y'all have, and also teamwork and effort with the other PDs in the sheriff's department. And so the image is very impressive, and thank you for all y'all's hard work and dedication.
And I just wanted to point out, Mr. Edwards and board members, that we have a guest in the audience, and this will happen every month because we believe in BISD has decided that they want to send a representative from the Chamber of Commerce, and we have our co-chair with us tonight, Christina Martinez, who is here.
All right, Mr. Edwards, we'll move to the spotlight speaker tonight here. The presenter is Andy Sexton, Athletic Director.
Good evening, everyone. I'd like to take it while we have an audience, but say special thanks to the police officers. They do a great job for us for all of our athletic events, the security event. I mean, they're there all the time. So I want to thank you guys for all you do for us, our football games, volleyball games, and all of our events. They provide a valuable service to us after hours. So thank you all for all that you do. A couple weeks ago, Dr. Lee and myself got a chance to get invited to the Chamber of Commerce and to get a chance for both our football coaches to talk about the upcoming season. And it was just an awesome opportunity for both John and Todd to talk about their program, how excited they are. It was right after their first ball game, and both of them were 1-0, so they were fired up. And we're in their third ball game now, and they're doing extremely well. And they just got a chance to talk about their kids and the excitement of the programs coming up. And they're off this week, but got a chance to start district play next week. We're in full swing athletically. We got everything: junior high football, junior high volleyball, cross country. We hosted a meet last week. We got volleyball going on. We got cross country, high school, and tennis. So it's a full swing of events. So if you get a chance, come out and watch us play, watch our kids play. But we're very excited about the upcoming season for our sports and our athletics in our whole district, from middle school up to high school. So it was a great chance a couple weeks ago to kind of promote our kids and promote our programs. So we appreciate the Chamber of Commerce inviting us and get a chance to talk about our programs. Thank y'all.
Thank you, Andy. Thank you, Andy.
All right, at this time, Ms. Barrientos, did anybody sign up for open forum?
No, sir.
All right, so we'll move past that. Before we get into our public hearing, Ms. Seacatz fell ill. She came down with a migraine, called me about 4:30, and so I told her we definitely had enough members here tonight to conduct the school business. She was at the agenda review and has studied the agenda, the campus improvement plans, and is very supportive of all those things. So with that, we'll move to our public hearing on the 2018-2019 proposed tax rate. Ms. Callahan.
Good evening, Board and Mr. Edwards. I wanted to point out to everyone how great my PowerPoint looks, and I'd like to thank Christy and actually Emily helped me with that because I'm learning on the new Google Slides, and I'm not the best at it. So my presentations have definitely taken a positive the way they look. Not so boring anymore. Tonight we are here to hold the 18-19 public hearing for adopting the tax rate. Will be open for any questions from the board and also from the public. And so we'll just get right onto it. You've heard this information. As you know, the board approves the tax rate that we bring and publish in the paper. It was in the September 8th newspaper, and that's approved by the board in August, and we have our official public hearing in September. This is just our truth in taxation information that we show each year. Our 17-18 tax rate, of course, we know was $1.04 for M&O, INS, 40 cents, and a total for $1.441. There's a rollback tax rate that's calculated and an effective tax rate that's calculated, and you can see those as presented. The rollback tax rate $1.45, the effective tax rate $1.37. And the M&O rollback rate is $1.04, and that's always $1.04. The rollback rate is made up of the two components. And our proposed rate for 18-19 is to keep the same tax rate of $1.04 for M&O, 40 cents for INS, for a total of $1.44. Of course, as we know, property values are what make up our tax rate and our revenue that we receive from the general fund from property values. And I'd just like to show this property value history where you can see that we have had increases in property values as everyone else in our neighboring districts have had. This represents about a 5% increase from last year. As you know, even though we get a certified value roll in July, there's still properties that are under protests, and those hearings still go on. There's not usually a big change, but you can see changes every year. When I do my tax rate hearing, I get the prior year's tax values, and those have changed slightly because of the appraisal review board meetings that continue to go on. I also like to show a tax rate history. Of course, our maintenance and operation, as you know, we've been at $1.04 since tax compression happened back in 2007-8. No change as far as I know, unless the legislature does something in this next year, but I would not see that. And you can see we're proposing it for 18-19 $1.04. Also, on our debt rate service tax rate history, it has had some changes from bonds and such over the years, but we are proposing and glad to say that we can keep 40 cents on our debt service tax rate as well. And as you know, last month we also are able to make a $2.2 million payment, early payment on some bonds, so that's great news with the tax collections. So paying off debt is always a good thing, and it saves us a lot of money in the long run. And again, just our total tax rate history again. Just like to show those to keep that on the forefront with everyone. Tax impact on home values. I did want to show this slide. I always do, but of course, since we're not increasing our tax rate, the values do not. There is no tax rate impact for a home value that has stayed the same. But I wanted to point out in our information we received from the appraisal district, our average values, and that's part of our tax rate notice that you would see in the newspaper. So for 17-18, our average value of houses in Bastrop ISD was $179,869, and for 18-19, it's $191,371. So just to show on average, that could be a $165 increase for an average home value of that sort. Just to show that, because property values have increased. We don't want to say they haven't, and that's just kind of shows an idea of what the difference would be for an average value in Bastrop ISD. Again, something didn't happen right with that last slide, but we are proposing $1.04 for M&O, 44 cents for debt, our debt service, and again $1.44. And I also like to show our principal taxpayers from one year to the next. This presentation will be on our website as well. That's required. But it's good to see who our top 10 taxpayers are, how much that makes up of our entire roll. So in 2017, our top 10 taxpayers made up about 10% of our total roll. And for 2018, right at 10% as well. A few changes in those top 10 taxpayers. There are a lot of them are the same. Some have changed positions, so that's good information, and we always get that from the appraisal district each year. So I just like to show that, and we know that it's important that all our top taxpayers, all taxpayers pay their taxes, but especially our top 10. That's all for my presentation. I'll be glad to answer any questions from the board or the public.
Ms. Callahan, I know the answer, but I'd just like to re-clarify that the value of a home is not dictated by the school district, it's by the appraisal district.
That's right.
Right.
And the appraisal district is governed by the comptroller's office. That's also noteworthy.
Every year you show us a graph of what we expect from the state and how that changes based on the amount that we're receiving locally. When will you find that out from?
I think I showed that in my budget presentation, but of course, with the revenue, it's always a year behind.
Right.
So our state aid for 2018-19 is based on that 2017 taxable value.
Gotcha.
So when it increases again, like for 2018, unless again something changes in the legislative year, then we would receive less state aid based on that tax value for the 19-20 school year. There is talk in the legislature to make that not for the prior year. Don't know if that'll happen. Anybody that can figure that out would be great. I don't know. There is talk. I have seen that on legislative talk that they're thinking about making that not a lag in the future. So we'll see. So, any other questions?
Any questions from the board? All right, any questions from anybody in the audience, since this is a public meeting? All right.
And the motion is pretty specific, and I can read that. And
Please.
then, I don't know if you have it. So we recommend we keep the current tax rate of $1.04 for maintenance and operations and 40 cents for the payment of principal and interest on debt for a total tax rate of 1.441 for the 18-19 fiscal year, which effectively results in a 5.12% increase in generated taxes over last year.
Any discussion from the board on the verbiage of that motion? If there is no discussion, to have a motion to entertain the
I so move.
second. Okay, we have a motion second. All in favor, say aye. Aye. Any opposed? All right, motion carries. Thank you, Ms. Callahan. All right. At this time, Mr. Edwards, would you take us through the superintendent's report and board discussion, please?
I'd be glad to. At this time, we'd like to present our curriculum report, our 2018-19 district improvement plan and campus improvement plans. Ms. Olivares.
Hello.
You're like, she's up there. Is she up there? Yes. Awesome. Oh, yeah. There she is.
While Ms.
All right.
Oliveris is getting all this together,
Yes.
and we're looking at the fun pictures, we did have a agenda review last Thursday night. I know the majority of the principals were here, and so the board has looked at this, and they have studied it
Yes.
for a period of time, maybe months now.
Yes.
And,
There might be a quiz afterwards.
Right, and exactly.
ready.
So,
We're ready.
anyways, we
So-
appreciate all the hard work that y'all put into this.
Thank you. Thank you. Good evening, Mr. Muchink, Mr. Edwards, members of the board. This evening, we are very proud to bring to you, for draft consideration, our district and our campus improvement plans. These were created at the campus and at the district level under the leadership and guidance of Dr. Marisol Rocha, whom you'll be hearing from later on this evening. She's our Director of Federal and State Programs and School Improvement. This quote by Yogi Berra really helps set the context for tonight's review of district and campus improvement plans. Because it's important to begin with the end in mind, we completely subscribe to the thought that if we don't know exactly where we're going and we have that targeted plan, we might wind up someplace else. And, that can have some consequences. So our district and our campus improvement plans are effected to help us know exactly where we're going, as well as the path to getting there, with some flexibility for making adjustments as we monitor our data. So let's dig in. Tonight, for our district and campus improvement plans, we're bringing to you strategies, and these strategies are in draft form for your consideration. In October, we're going to bring you finalized performance objectives for approval. And then these strategies, as I mentioned at agenda review, are based on our superintendent's challenge. And that challenge was to create connected and viable plans that are easily actionable from the boardroom to the classroom. Again, what does it mean at the teacher level when we distill these improvement plans? Because we realize that that's where the work is going to take place with our learners. So, thinking through our district and our campus improvement plans, they really are the blueprint for continuous improvement for us. And we anchor them from the strategic plan that we designed as a district. And as a reminder, we're in our third year of that. Our plans really do need to become practical, consistent, and frequently referenced documents. So each campus improvement plan contains 10 basic elements, ranging from conducting a comprehensive needs assessment to planning for ongoing high-quality professional development, to the creation of performance objectives that are measurable, to retaining our teaching staff. Each campus improvement plan also has to meaningfully coordinate and integrate different funding sources, ranging from federal, state, and local monies, programs, and services. So all of the campuses and the district are charged with affecting and including these 10 components in their plans. So the planning process always starts with forming the committee. So forming the team, typically by vote or mandatory fund, and then conducting a comprehensive needs assessment. From there, the campuses develop and or revise their improvement plan and link their funding sources. So everything that we say we're going to do, we need to really think through, how are we going to fund it? Is this something that requires some funding, and where are we going to draw that funding from? Then it gets to the fun part, which is implementing the actual improvement plan. So that means they have to communicate it to all stakeholders. Then they have to keep it at the forefront of every decision that we make. So if we're thinking about how are we going to spend money, we get a new influx of money. Let's look at our campus improvement plan. What did we say we needed to target? If we're thinking about where do we put more tutoring resources from, let's look at our campus improvement plan to see what did we say we needed targeted assistance with. If we wonder, are we meeting our goals? Let's go back to those plans to see how did we say we're going to measure those targets. Truly, that is the most challenging, but also the best part of the process. Because if we invest the time up front, and that's what we ask our leaders to do and ourselves to do, let's invest the time up front to create a solid plan. Then all you have to do is methodically execute your plan and monitor it, right? And then finally, we evaluate the plan and we start working on what do we want to continue next year. We might mark some things as accomplished, or we might dismiss some goals altogether because we've met them, and then we see, okay, now we have an area that's popping up. Let's think about including it, and then we start the process all over again. So I really like this quote: excellence is the result of always striving to do better. So no one in our district feels that they've arrived in terms of the continuous improvement process. Even our campuses that have, those multiple distinctions, we're always striving to be better. So in your board book, we provided you with a full report, those 711 pages, as well as that 4-page guide. And that is what we're going to just take some highlights from today. Page 1 is what we have projected up here. It's the visual depicting how we're guided by our strategic action plan and that alignment with our board priorities and superintendent goals. If you recall, Dr. Lee gave us that update on the strategic plan last month. So from that strategic action plan, we then derive 3 goals in the areas of safety and security, academic achievement, and those relationship building initiatives. Following each of these 3 goals, then we developed action items labeled 1 through 3, and they're listed there for your review. For example, Goal 1 under Safety and Security has 4 different strategies labeled 1A, which is audits and training. So we have to do something about audits and training for safety, to 1D, which is the implementation of our social emotional learning. So this is the roadmap to, specifically on that broad goal, what do we say are going to be some actionable things that everybody has to then attend to in their plans. So that's page 1. Page 2 illustrates how we categorize where each board priority and superintendent goal fits under each one of our strategic goals. So for example, under Goal 1, for maintaining a system of differentiated instruction, we aligned it with a reading-focused goal and then also with RTI for behavior in academics. So you find this alignment throughout all of the district and campus improvement documents. This is our initiative to take a collective effort to address specific areas of improvement for safety, achievement, and relationship building. Moving into page 3, this is a graphic representation of how our plan, our district plan, aligns with the strategic plan and lists out all of the strategies that we're going to undertake to maintain those goals. So we have pared down our district improvement plan from 31 to 17 strategies, which is a really big deal for us. And the reason for that is we want to be really laser focused. What as a district are we sending as messages to our campuses that we want to prioritize? We want to make sure that those are actionable. And then finally, page 4. So we took those, this is where we took that cool link that we had for you, where we took those 711 pages, and we really wanted to make sure we highlighted where in those plans are the 2 big priorities that we set up for ourselves. And the big charges that we felt we had were safety and security, and then academic achievement. So for that, we set common goals for all of our campuses. So one example of that is in the area of safety and security. We really wanted to make sure that we maintained campus-wide behavior and classroom management strategies. That means that we're asking and charging campuses to consistently use our discipline matrix, our consistency guide, and positive behavior intervention supports. They all have that common goal. So there's places where we have common goals, but then also under academic achievement, they each go in there and they set their own targets based on their academic achievement. So there's room for, this is something we're all working on, and these are the individual targets that we're going to set based on how we're doing in reading, in math, etc. So, as a reminder, this final quote exemplifies our plans are action-based, but we monitor them and then we adjust. So we don't stay stagnant. We really charge our campuses and ourselves as a district with looking at it and coming back and saying, how are we doing? And if our data indicates that we have another piece that we need to attend to, then we're going to address it as well. So with this, I want to leave you with our district and campus improvement plans for your review. Right now, we're just reviewing. In October, we return to approve the plans. So I am happy at this point to entertain any questions or any comments that you may have had on those draft plans. Keep in mind, we are working on those performance objectives, and we'll bring those to you in October.
For the performance objectives that are coming next month,
Yes, sir.
how often will those be reviewed by the board and the public?
Right. So you'll approve them next month,
Right.
and then we bring to you how did we do the following year. But at the district and campus level, we review them quarterly. And so what we could do is always provide you with information on how we feel we're monitoring those goals, because we actively monitor those goals. So if you want more communication on how we feel we're doing on them, we absolutely can provide them, but you'll approve them once a year. It's a good question.
The classroom and campus behavior, I don't know if there's some other verbiage we can put in there to sporting events at other schools. Our students are representing Bastrop there, or Cedar Creek, and their code of
Like a
conduct and how
citizenship
they...
goal on how we represent.
Right, and I know Mr. Saxton is already on top of this, but still I think it's important to put it in writing that it's just not football. It could be volleyball, it could be cross country, it could be whatever, but that's, I was at a meet the other day and cross country, and I heard a young man under a tent from another school.
Mm-hmm.
He was just using foul language.
Mm-hmm.
And first thing I looked at was, well, what school is that from?
Right.
So that's our image out there.
Mm-hmm.
And so I don't know if there's how we can make sure it extends just beyond the campus when they're even, and not so much at home or in the community, but just if they're representing
Right.
Bastrop ISD.
Right. And I certainly would, and I thank you for that, but I would extend that also beyond any group or organization that is representing us. I know our coaches and I know our sponsors are talking to them when we go out of town about what our expectations are. But before that, I know they're talking to each other about how we problem solve, how we act as a team, and how we behave at meets. And so that is something that I already feel
Good.
like our coaches are undertaking, but then also our sponsors, because our theater group, goes to, national things. So we really want to make sure that we have something that is broad in scope. But we hear you, and we do expect our students that are representing us to achieve at that standard, because they are wearing the Bastrop, logo T-shirts and representing their efforts on our behalf. So we hear you.
Great. Well, thanks for the update.
Of course. And we'll act on it.
I think
And any other questions?
the only thing I wanted to add was just kind of go off what Ashley said. I had a nice open house last night at Cedar Creek High School, and Bridget, I'm a big Bridget fan, but
As are we.
one of the things is trying to be consistent, because they do have leeway at the campuses, and this board has supported that the past 2 years. But if we're not consistent, then that's not a good thing. It doesn't send a good message. So Bastrop High and Cedar Creek High, you got to be consistent in your discipline measures. So I hope that they're talking,
Right.
and that the kid at that meet may have got a certain punishment, but the kid over here may have got a different punishment. And that gets back. And they say, well, my kid did the same thing and he didn't. So I'm looking for consistency with that discipline in both schools. I like it where they have their control. I've had the conversations with the principals, and I support that, and I think they want that control from the conversations I've had. But being consistent, they got to be on the same page.
Right.
So-
So that's, I think, very intentionally why safety and security is goal number one. And then the first strategy under everyone's plan, and I told you guys this in full disclaimer last week, we don't feel that we've arrived yet at this, but we feel like we are actively working on that. And it includes verbiage like using our consistency guides. Now, that being said, there might be different, details and situations, but there are certain things that we want to make sure that we're remaining consistent. So we have those guides. Mr. Hudson has created those in collaboration with our administrators, and we're bringing them to AP meetings, and we're saying, so guys, how are we doing with this? How are we coding? So those conversations are happening, and they'll continue to happen on a monthly basis with those assistant principals, and then principals are having their own conversations on campus with their admin teams.
I bring this up not because I think it's a huge problem, but every year you're going to get a different set of kids. They're going to give you different challenges.
For sure.
And it's how are you going to respond to those challenges.
Yes.
And let's stay consistent with that so that
Right.
one grade level doesn't come through. And
Right.
so it's always going to be a challenge, but challenges are what it's all about.
Right.
It's definitely not a huge problem, but it's a challenge, and we're going to have to just stay on top of it.
Sure.
And like Ashley says, image is important.
Right.
Where we're at a volleyball.
Right.
But in the past, I've seen coaches remove kids, which I'm like, okay, all right. I mean, this kid's saying things he shouldn't say, whether he was wearing maroon, blue, or a different school.
Right.
I've seen him removed at baseball games. I've seen him removed at volleyball games from our administrators.
Right.
And I like that consistency across the campus where they say, hey,
Right.
you want to come in here, you want to watch this, that's great, but you're going to represent this district. So just kind of going off what you said.
And it's similar to the image of the police department. And I mean, out there, what we're seeing and hearing, what we want to be cautious of is there are challenging kids, especially at the high school level, that possibly, if they can't function at a surrounding community at their high school, we don't want to get the reputation. We'll go over to Bastrop because they can get by with this. They're not enforcing things as maybe strict or whatever. And of course, I know that we got to be careful about that. We just don't want to have the create the image or be known as that district that just go over there and,
Right.
so it's more than just what's going on within the campus level.
We certainly strive to be a destination district for academics and for access and opportunity for kids. We don't shy away from consistency or from having conversations. We open doors and platforms for our administrators to bring us those tough cases so that we can help them problem solve. So I want you to hear, we're listening, and we don't take lightly to the charge that you're giving to us. We want to operate in a forum of trust and mutual understanding, because we know that you are hearing from our community what those concerns are, and we want to make sure that we're addressing them. But please hear, we're not shying away from consistency. We're operating within our guides, our norms, our references, and we're going to continue to work those. I do believe we have very capable and competent administrators that are doing their best to make sure we ensure and that we signal to our students that we're going to be swift and we're going to be diligent. We're going to give them their due process, but we're going to take care of them, and we're going to make sure that the message is that that we care enough about them to administer discipline when discipline is needed.
Right. Well, thank you for everybody's help with that and owning that and up for the challenge. And we're here to support you, whatever measures, means, policies.
Yes.
Get with Mr. Edwards, and he'll get with us. So.
We feel supported.
Right.
That's for sure. Thank you.
Thank you, Lila. Moving to item number 2 from the curriculum report, the 2018-19 budgets, our federal programs, Every Student Succeeds, Title I, Title II, Title III, and Migrant. Dr. Marisol Rocha.
Well, good evening, board members. Mr. Edwards, it's so nice to be here with you this evening as my inaugural presentation to you guys. It was great to meet y'all Thursday. The alignment of looking at ESSA budgets this afternoon really is perfect as we look at SIPs and DIPs.
Yes.
And Lila has so perfectly laid out the cake for us, and now I get to show you the dollar amounts with the icing. And as you do think about this, we were kidding that there was going to be a quiz, but do you remember what the 10th piece was for her SIP? So all of those 10 pieces that we look for in our SIPs and DIPs, what was the 10th one? Do y'all remember?
Molly, this is going to get
the funding.
Right, absolutely.
Where
Yes,
does the money
yes.
come from?
Yay. And I think I speak to this as I've worked with our amazing principals the past 2 months on their SIPs and worked with our team on the DIP, that we are really coordinating and integrating our campus improvement plans, our CNAs, and really diving into what that looks like on a funding level. And so as I share these numbers with you, and we're going to look at last year's compared to this year's, I really want you to think about those priorities that Ms. Olivares speaks about. Are those visible through the funding as you look at this? Okay? So we're going to start out with looking at our 5 allocations that we're looking at this evening: our Title I Part A, our Title I-C, our migrant funding, our 2A, which is our teacher and principal recruiting and training, our Title III, which is our English language acquisition, and then our Title IV, which is focused on student support and academic enrichment programming. So taking a look at our Title I Part A, just as a reminder, and no changes from last year, we are looking at all 9 of our campuses, all 6 elementaries, 2 intermediate schools, and Cedar Creek Middle are all designated as school-wide Title I campuses for the 18-19 school year. So just a reminder about what we use our Title I Part A funding for. These are overall educational program upgrades, as we call them. So you're going to see these specifically, and we are supporting our superintendent goal 2B very clearly with our focus on reading this school year, enhancing our reading programs, looking at interventions and tutorials, our professional development, and then of course our parental involvement as it lends itself to those reading supports as well. So this is just kind of a breakdown from last year to this year. You did see that our budgets did increase by about 4% overall, with an increase in our student population as far as that was concerned. As we do look at the breakdown, we see our payroll, contracted services, our supplies and materials costs, our other operating costs, which are going to basically be our travel for professional development, our student educational field trip travel, pieces like that, and then our indirect costs, which are just the costs that we have to fulfill the grant operations, and those are usually about 2%. So this is just a schematic kind of showing you guys last year's funding to this year. And then we actually look at our payroll costs by category. So at the district level, this is where the funding is coming out for our $600 stipend for our ESL certified teachers. This is our funding for our parental involvement and our homeless liaison. 75% of that academic RTI coordinator is coming from here, and then the 1 bilingual specialist. At the campus level, and obviously this is varied from campus to campus, we have instructional coaches supported through this funding, RTI teachers, paraprofessionals, and tutors. And again, all of this is linked to the campus improvement plan through that comprehensive needs assessment that was done at the campus level to ensure that funding is really meeting the needs where we need it.
How does the tutor, is that a teacher that's filling that role, or is that a...
So we have certified tutors and we have non-certified tutors, yes. And so some of this also is daytime tutors, after-school tutoring, and then also Saturday school opportunities.
So that compensation is similar to a stipend for a coach, is okay, or similar to...
Ish.
Ish, okay, right.
Did we say the same thing? Jinx. Okay. All right, So now taking a look at our Title I Part C migrant. So for the 18-19 school year, we have elected to do a migrant shared service arrangement just like we did last year with Region 13 Service Center. The Service Center does provide us with support as far as program compliance is concerned. In this interim where we have not had a migrant liaison, they have been very instrumental in supporting us with a lot of the back to school work that we have and identifying kids, supporting us with really making sure that all that paperwork is in line. And so they've really been a benefit to me. They've come out, they've been very supportive and helpful. So we really appreciate the service we are getting through Region 13. We are at a 50-50 option. So 50% of the migrant funds do flow back to our district, and that is used to fund the migrant specialist liaison that we do have that continues to work with our families and our students. So taking a look just again at overall budget for our Title I Part C migrant funding, we did go down just a little bit based on our numbers of migrant students from 17-18 to 18-19. All right, moving on to our Title II Part A, which is our teacher and principal training and recruitment. So again, as we talk about that alignment, continuing with that academic RTI coordinator salary piece, funding, supporting our professional learning, again with the reading, the writing, data analysis, instructional coach training, and then that curriculum council work. Additional funding will also be utilized by HR to support recruitment and retention efforts and leadership development within our district.
Can we go back to that, the last bullet? Can you explain that a little bit, how that will be used through HR?
Yes, so our executive director, Ms. Leifer will send principals and assistant principals to training. For example, there's one coming up for documentation in Elgin where, so the funding will provide for those opportunities to make sure that our folks are shored up in the HR side of the world, and then also for recruitment efforts. But the leadership development piece is nice to highlight as well, because sometimes we forget about giving our leaders that growth piece and those opportunities for them to also sharpen their craft.
So this is for leadership training.
Yes.
And mentorship. And mentorship.
Yes,
so yeah. Okay. Okay, thank you.
All right, so now moving on to our breakdown comparison from last year. One thing that I do want to point out to you that you can see is that our payroll costs did go up and our contracted services did go down. And one of the ways that I personally have seen this, as far as being a new person, this is such an investment in our people. This is where the curriculum council funding is coming from. This is where we're supporting our principals, we're supporting our instructional coaches. And so to see that contracted services number going down, I think that's a wonderful thing, because that shows that we're building that capacity internally here in BISD, and that's great. Great. So kind of just sharing that piece right there. You can see that contracted services went down quite a bit. All right, and then moving on to our Title III English Language Acquisition. So majority of our funds for Title III are used for academic achievement for our LEP students. And so this funding will be to support 2 ESL specialist positions, ESL adult classes, additional parent involvement classes, stipends for bilingual PLC, our sheltered instruction SI cohort stipends come from this, and then our EL mentor initiative stipends. And then of course professional development for teachers of ELs. And as you guys know, we have a brand new director, and she has definitely gone through everything with a fine-tooth comb and really looked at CNAs and really looking at strategies in particular. And so there are going to actually be some realignment of funds, because she was not the original person to put in the application for this. So we will be doing an amendment, and I'll be working with her on my first amendment, which I'm really excited about. And so we will definitely be able to take this in the new direction with her new initiatives and her team. And we're really excited about that as well. All right, and then finally, we have our Title IV funding, which is our student support and academic enrichment. And this one is the one that's really focused on well-rounded, safe, and healthy student habits and the effective use of technology. And this is the one that is so important with our superintendent goal of safety and security as well. Really focusing on what you guys were just saying after the DIP and SIP presentation, which is getting that consistency. And that behavior RTI person is going in, meeting with those PBIS teams, providing that consistency from campus to campus. That is so, so critical. Also, the funding is being utilized for behavior coaching on individual campuses, and then, of course, finally, our campus technology piece. And then just and that is it. Any questions?
Just back to Title I there, the migrant section, migrant support specialist. Two questions. One, just what is the role of, help me possibly understand, what's the role of that position, and how many, just an estimate of students population are we talking about, Brad?
So,
just so we know.
At the onset of this school year, we had 92.
Okay.
That person really serves as like the way I see it is like a case manager for our migrant students. They actually do the identification. So they work specifically with our registrars to make sure that we're identifying these students. One of the charges this school year is to actually do a lot more outreach, going and seeing, because there's some things we're not catching just at the school level. So making sure that they're a face in the community, really, like we've actually done a thing. We're going to get the new person hopefully very soon, wonderful person, which I can't wait for you guys to meet, but that they will actually be out there to promote the program, talking to our bus drivers, talking to people within our BISD community more about that. But then after the identification piece, then it's actually meeting with those parents of those families and then providing the specific services that they need, whether that's a laptop for their work. I think all of our high school students get a laptop through the migrant program. There's college trips, specifically technical trade trips. And so again, like really that one-on-one case management.
Right. And just, you know, roughly how many we had last year? Is this something that's doubling in the number of students each year?
No, our funding went down, but not by a lot. So I think we were at about like 112 or something like that. Pretty close to that.
Oh, that's great. Interesting. Thank you.
All right.
Thank you.
Any other questions from the board? Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
All right.
All right, at this time, I'd like to ask Ms. Olivares to come back up and present the credit by exam annual resolution.
Hello again. I told you she was fabulous, right? All right, so, and as a former migrant kid, I get very excited about the services that we provide here in Bastrop ISD. So I'm bringing to you now a credit by exam resolution. And we're not voting on this, we're reviewing it. This is for review. But the State Board of Education recently approved revised rules on credit by examination. And they include new requirements for districts and assessment providers. And we actually go through an assessment provider that I'll tell you about in a few minutes. But the new rule is that we have to audit the credit by exam assessments. Wanting to make sure that those assessments to accelerate students are rigorous. So the District Board of Trustees must approve the audit process for credit by exam assessments that we use for kindergarten through grade 5 acceleration and for all district created assessments. And you should have a copy of the resolution. I'm sorry it's not popping up here. But the resolution of board approving examinations for acceleration or to earn credit is drafted and was included in your board packet for review. In the resolution, what you find is that for all elementary and also for our high schools, we go through the University of Texas at Austin. And because they're an outside assessment provider, they actually conduct their own audits. And what they have to do in the audit is just make sure that the assessments actually match the rigor of the state standards or the TEKS. So in approving examinations from UT Austin, the board
determines that the university certification and audit demonstrates that the examinations accurately and appropriately assess a student's knowledge and skills of the TEKS. So basically, we want to make sure that there's a checks and balance system to make sure that when we're testing students for acceleration, that the tests that we're using are rigorous enough so that we're not setting up the kiddo for failure if we do accelerate them. Just so for your own knowledge, we offer 6 different windows throughout the year, starting in July all the way through April of 2019. So in any one given academic year, we offer 6 windows for parents or teachers or counselors to say, we feel like we want to take advantage of credit by exam for our students. So next month, what we'll do is we'll come back to actually approve that resolution. There's also a component for an annual review that we'll bring to you at a later time of how we're doing with our credit by exam program. And that data is being gathered right now by the University of Texas, Austin. So they're putting together all of our numbers so that we can bring those to you in an annual report. So for today, all we're doing is looking at the resolution for your consideration and review.
And that consideration will be in the action items?
It will next month, yes, sir.
Next month, okay.
Yes, sir. We wanted to give you some time to study it, ask questions, and then I also wanted to let you know that because we go with a provider with the University of Texas at Austin, that they will have their own audit process, so we don't have to worry about that. All we're going to have to do is accept or approve them as providers and their auditing processes next month.
What grade level is that for again?
So we start with kinder through 5th, and then middle school, and then secondary, all the way through high school. And for high school, we use credit by examination, but then to accelerate kids, we also have options for advanced placement and for CLEP examinations. So the high school kids get a couple more goodies, but yeah.
Thank you.
Of course. Thank you. And we'll come back in October for this one.
Any other questions from the board? Thank you.
Yes,
Shay.
thank you.
All right, our financial report is for information only, along with our personnel report is for information only. And our operations report from Chief Yarbrough will be an update on our dropout recovery program.
Mr. Muchink, Mr. Edwards, members of the board, thank you for this opportunity to come and bring you an update on the process and the status of how our attendance officers and registrars and campus registrars have been working to recover students that are in danger of being dropped, classified as dropouts. So I want to bring this information to you. And basically, when BISD engages in attendance recovery, it's because each child is required who is at least 6 years of age or who is younger than 6 years of age and has previously enrolled in first grade and who has not yet reached their 19th birthday. They're required to attend school for the entire period the program is offered unless they meet a certain exemption by the Texas Education Code. Attendance officers, we have an attendance officer that works Bastrop feeder pattern. We also have one that works Cedar Creek feeder pattern, and they serve the campuses and the district in many different ways, and one of those is in dropout recovery. And the district currently is working to recover as many students as possible who have not returned to Bastrop ISD or has not actually enrolled or been accountable at any other school. Our deadline for recovery is September 28th, and that's where the window for school start closes. So they're working very hard at this point to make sure that they identify these students. And so one of the challenges that we had as a district is when we started early, schools must submit their first enrollment to the Texas Student Data System within the first 3 weeks of school. So when we at the time we started, a lot of schools had not submitted that data, so we were basically still working to try to recover the students in the best way we possibly could. September 14th was the deadline for all schools to have that information submitted and uploaded to the TSDS. And like I said earlier, despite our early start, they continue to work, our attendance officers and our campus staff in trying to locate those students that were in danger of being classified as dropouts. And when we do dropout recovery, we look in two primary areas. And one of those is we look at the no-shows, but we also look at the dropouts. With regard to the no-shows, on August 16th, the second day of school, is when our attendance officers actually go out and they hit the ground running trying to recover students. August 16th, we had 359 no-shows in the district. As of, that date's wrong, but as of today, we have 7 no-shows that they're actually out working hard to recover. With regard to dropouts, on August 16th, we had 74 that were categorized as dropouts. And as of today, we have 15 that are categorized as dropouts that they're still actively working to recover. The date, like I said, the window closes September 28th, so we still have all of this week and we still have all of next week to continue our efforts to recover those students. Attendance officers engage in extensive efforts to locate potential dropouts, and those recovery efforts include using databases that are available to them, and in addition to the databases that the district has provided to supplement that, so that they can locate students in all public, private, charter schools in Texas and throughout the United States. They also go out and they make home visits. They talk to friends and they receive information from friends as to where these students may be located. They also talk to family members. They talk to neighbors. They use social media to see if they can find these students. They use the courts for assistance, and they also talk with social workers to see if they can provide assistance in locating these students. So they withhold no stops. They go to the greatest lengths possible to recover these students, because we know as a district the priority is getting our students in school so that they can receive that quality education. Not only are our attendance officers working very hard to accomplish this task, but our PEIMS office, campus registrars are also working feverishly to make sure that the data that's being inputted and provided to our attendance officers are accurate, so that they can make sure that those numbers at the end of the day are consistent and accurate to what we're trying to achieve. And that concludes this short presentation. If you have any questions for me regarding this, I'm willing to entertain those.
Sounds like y'all have been working hard. Oh, go ahead.
What happens after that September 28th deadline?
After the September 28th deadline, any students that have not been recovered, the district is deemed on those, and they're looked at as dropouts by the district or by the state.
But that doesn't mean that the truancy officers aren't still trying to track them down and get them into school. Yeah.
Window to report them closed. We still continue
I can't say.
year-round. Thank you. Very good question.
We really appreciate the hard work that takes to find those students and to convince them that it's a great place to be in school.
Yes, and it is. And I'll tell you, one of the things that I think helps them a lot is they have made really good relationships and positive relationships with students, and those students that are in danger, and also our campus counselors and social workers, campus staff. They've done an amazing job in making those relationships. So it gives them that added incentive to come to school, because they see the value of the education that we're providing here in this district.
That people care about them.
Yes, ma'am.
And Martin, camaraderie, thank you too, because I know that's Plan B, and yes, and so thank you very much.
Okay, thank you.
Well done. All right, thanks, Chief. All right, communications and community service report is for report only. At this time, we'll move to consent agenda. Would any board member like to pull any of the consent agenda items for discussion? All right, if not, I will entertain a motion to approve the consent agenda items as presented.
I move that we approve the consent agenda as presented.
Second. We have a motion and a second. All in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed? All right, motion carries. At this time, we'll move to our action items. We'll consider approval of targeted improvement plan. Ms. Olivers, again.
Hello again. Okay. So this evening, we bring you, for your approval, the targeted improvement plans for Emile Elementary School and Bastrop Intermediate.
So Emile Elementary and Bastrop Intermediate, as you know, are required to develop and implement a targeted improvement plan to address their status of improvement required for the 2018-2019 school year. These plans that we're bringing to you today were created under the direction of Principals Wendy Burnett and Dan Brown with collaboration of the campus professional service providers, which we have to have by statute. We have two of them, Mary Alice Dykey and Chris Wakefield. Ms. Dykey is out at Emile and Ms. Wakefield is out at BIS. And the District Coordinator of School Improvement, Dr. Rocha, and their campus intervention team, or the SIT. The plans, after your approval, will be presented to the full staff at a faculty meeting. So the campus leadership teams have to collaboratively engage in what's called the TASE process. It's the Texas Accountability Intervention Systems process. And there's training that our principals and our PSPs and our director went to make sure that we address these 4 components. And it's basically just this process of continuous improvement. There's 4 key action steps. The data analysis, what happened that we landed in a low-performing area or areas. A needs assessment, why? You know, this is where we get very real with ourselves as a team, not to beat ourselves up, but to really analyze, you know, why did this happen? And then the improvement planning. So how are we going to move ourselves beyond that? So we're not going to stay stagnant in where we are, but we're going to move ourselves, and how are we going to do that? What are the moves? And then finally, the implementing and monitoring of that targeted accountability plan, which I call the accountability, right? So this is just a graphic for you of those 4 steps, and they're continuously going through that data analysis, the needs assessment, implementing the plan. As I mentioned to you earlier when we were talking about those campus improvement plans, that piece is huge. Anyone can make a plan, but executing the plan is where you're living them day to day. And then that implementation and monitoring that leads to more data review, frankly, and perhaps new improvement actions. So when we think about plans, and when we think in particular about targeted improvement plans, we really feel like we have to keep it simple. Because if we get too complex, you forget the obvious. This is about student performance and achievement and developing and nurturing teacher capacity in instructional practices. But at the forefront of all of this is our students, their access and their right to have an education where they can thrive. So I'm going to give you some highlights of each one of these plans. So I'm going to give you, first with Emile, this is kind of their overarching highlight, and then I'm going to talk through some key strategies that they're implementing. Now, mind you, these align with what they're going to present in their campus improvement plan. So we don't want to have 2 separate and apart plans. We want to make sure that everything still follows our charge to make sure that we're addressing our overarching goals with some very targeted areas for these campuses. So at Emile, we aim to have their instructional leadership team, their ILT, monitor and support instruction to ensure that lesson planning and classroom instruction and board, I'll tell you, those are the 2 key moves right there. We're returning to basics. It's about planning and it's about delivering those plans. And we want to make sure that we're aligning it to the depth and complexity of the grade level TEKS. We assume good intentions and we understand that our teachers are working hard. You know, this isn't for a lack of effort. It's, are we making the right moves in our planning, and are we executing it instructionally at the level that the state is requiring so that we can have those positive outcomes? So some strategies that they're using to get us to there: they've increased their teacher planning time. So we feel like if we're charging them with really creating plans that are more that are better for kids, we got to give them more time to do that. So we've made that change. Creation and monitoring of their ELAR, so their literacy and their math common assessments. They're going through and they're saying, how are we testing, you know, our kiddos so that we know how they're doing periodically, not to kill them with tests, but to have very short data dipsticks so that they understand where their kids are progressing. This could be as simple as a good old-fashioned running record, hearing Billy read, making sure that we're on track. They're adopting an instructional framework named Model Classroom Project, and we've talked about that before. That's basically your old Madeline Hunter, these are some powerful moves for delivering instruction. They've increased their literacy instructional block, and they're using guided reading and explicit instruction in phonics to make sure that the littles, the K through 2, don't fall through the cracks. They're using math and reading screeners for RTI. They have a weekly walkthrough focus, so that means the instructional leadership, so the principal, the assistant principals, and the coach are laser focused on learning walks. What are we seeing, and how are we calibrating and debriefing about them? And then they have something called Transformational Tuesdays, which is just-in-time PD. I was at one of these recently, and so we just offer up sessions, and teachers sign up for what they need. So it's just meeting their needs at that time. So that's, in a nutshell, Emil. When we look at Bastrop Intermediate, their big aim is to utilize collaborative planning, their assessment data, and MCP, so they're also adopting that instructional framework of MCP to increase the rigor of instruction and to measure individual student progress. How they're going to go about this is they are folding in district curriculum specialists and their campus instructional coach to support planning. And they have goals for English language arts, math, and science in their PLCs. So again, going back to that lesson planning, making sure that it's on point. Creation and monitoring of their campus common assessments. These are the assessments that the teachers control, so making sure they have good strategies for creating viable common assessments. Data folders. They're using data folders in reading and math so that students can self-monitor how they're doing. They're also using reading and math RTI screeners. They're also using assessment data for reteach and conferencing with kids. So what they've done is they've slowed down their teaching plan to make sure that their calendar includes dates for data review and reteaching. So let's not blow through the curriculum. Let's make sure that we're responding to the data points so that we're adjusting for kiddos. So these are just some key strategies that Bastrop Intermediate is utilizing in their plan. So this is a really good quote by Coach Landry. Setting a goal is not the main thing. It's deciding how you're going to go about it, achieving it, and staying with that plan. And so we really believe that through some focused time that they've given to their targeted improvement plan and their efforts to monitor their plans, I believe that they're going to achieve and they're going to carry their plan to fruition. A couple of concluding thoughts for you. We do have district task forces out at each IR campus. That's part of our team, required to be there 8 hours a week at minimum. There's a lot of members that are there more to help support and coach the teachers. They also get weekly support from Dr. Rocha and also their PSPs, and they get additional planning time funded from us for them. So again, with the idea that we are asking them to be really mindful of their planning, so we want to make sure we set them up for success by giving them that time. So I'm happy to entertain questions or thoughts about these targeted improvement plans, and then I have an administrative recommendation for you so that we can approve them and start communicating them and carrying them out.
Just right quick, Ms. Burnett and Mr. Brown, thank you for being here tonight. It means a lot. This board for years understands the opportunity that we have each year at those campuses. I've had daughters that have attended those campuses and gotten a great education. Y'all got a great team over there, and we believe in you as this board. So we're here to support you, and please pass that on to the rest of the teams over there at both of those campuses. Sure.
I have a question on the goals for the 3 different problems for each campus. The difference in the numbers between what actually happened and what the goal is to happen, how were those numbers?
So you're asking for the differential between what they're trying to achieve?
Where did those come from?
Okay.
That's a good question. So starting with Emile, in 2018, in their reading progress, they were at 52% of their kids achieving progress, and their targeted goal is 75. So they're going to need 23 percentage points in reading, and then they're going to need 24 percentage points in math. So they were at 51% of their kiddos meeting progress, and they're trying to get themselves to 75. So about a 20-point spread. For BIS, it's in the 16% points needed for reading and about 11 for math. They're not going to stop there, but they're anchoring, and they're doing really cool things. Like every teacher has the roster of their kids, how they did last year. They know who they need to maintain and who they need to continue to move forward in that progress realm. So it's ambitious, but it's very doable. We have the...
Those numbers look pretty big.
Well, it is, but it's also this idea of we don't want to let kids go backwards, and we want to make sure we're growing them and we're preparing them for their next opportunities. So we're taking some real measured approaches at both campuses under the leadership of these principals to try to carry them out.
Thought out and a very systematic approach to it. I'm sure they'll be successful. It's just a little daunting to me to look at some of these numbers and think.
It is, and we're realistic about that, but we're also always very systemic in our approach. That's why we're identifying kids, and we're identifying them early. We talked to you about the funding. We don't want, that to be something that gets in the way, and so we're throwing, our manpower, our heart, and our soul into making sure that our campuses, perform as we expect them and as you expect them to, and what you've charged us with. So we believe we can do this.
And I just would like to comment on that what I'm seeing in these plans are what will help all schools and all students, because it's really, I just want to compliment you on the focus on knowing your students and then knowing exactly what those standards are saying and really honing in on that. And that's, I know, a district-wide thing. But then the other is focusing on those instructional practices that are those that are known to be the most effective. It's, to me, enlightening to read a plan like this rather than, well, these kids are the ones that we have to, we have to work with these students. We're talking about a whole school culture, it sounds like.
And including all kids, not just focusing on low performing, but including the kiddos that we can push, because they're deserving as well, to be challenged and to be grown in this system. And you're right, it's not easy sometimes to have those conversations about, what, we weren't there. Our efforts were good, but the instructional task, the level of complexity of what we were asking kids to do, or maybe how we delivered it, or the questions we were asking, just weren't there. So we want to huddle around support and raise that for all campuses, but certainly keeping an eye on these two.
And those are very good goals, lofty goals, but very excellent goals to have.
And I even know during our team building, we had a great instructor, and it was, the board wasn't passionate about getting test results up, okay? It was about all the TEKs being covered.
That's right.
And preparing these children for the next grade, for the future of where they're going. Haven't found a fan yet of the state testing system, but that's okay. But we all inherited it, and so we have to work with it. And so just kind of elaborate a little bit what Ms. Molly said. So we're focused on the quality of education and the big picture.
That's right. And we thank you for keeping that focus at the forefront. And we are, as well, partnering with you in that. So any other questions that I could entertain? Might I read the administrative recommendation to you? Okay. Tonight we move that you approve the 2018-2019 Emile Elementary and Bastrop Intermediate Improvement Required Targeted Improvement Plans.
I so move.
Second. We have a motion and a second. All in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Also motion carried. Thank you for all y'all's hard work and dedication, and Ms. Burnett and Mr. Brown. Good luck. All right.
We won't let you
have
down.
Fun, everybody. Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you.
At this time, we will consider approval of the revisions to TASB policy FFAC local. We have Miss, is it Rice?
Rios.
Rios, yes. Sorry about that.
Well, good evening, Mr. Edwards and Board of Trustees. It's my pleasure to be here this evening to explain the reason and the rationale for revising the policy FFAC local. It's relating to the use of epinephrine auto-injectors on public schools and open enrollment charter school campuses at or in transit from off-campus school events, which passed in 2015. So in 2015, Senate Bill 66 was passed, and that allowed the campuses, the district, to have unassigned auto injectors for epinephrine to be used on anyone that was potentially having an allergic reaction, an anaphylactic reaction. The initial intent of the law was for the injector to be available during all activities, and when the first policy came out, it only described an open campus as an hour before instruction through the last hour of instruction, so it didn't meet the needs of the law. So one of the changes goes to the fact that the auto epinephrine injectors need to be available all throughout anytime there's a school-sponsored activity happening on a campus. In addition to that, new definition of what an open campus is comes making sure you have your staff adequately trained and assigned and competent in being able to administer an auto injector. So our campus, our district staff currently receives professional development, and then we'll follow that up with making sure at faculty meetings they will get additional hands-on training demonstrations on how to use the injectors. In addition, that the change also addressed how the district's going to meet the administrative regulations with regards to obtaining, purchasing the injectors, disposal, storage, and how they're going to be accessed. So we're in the process of drafting up those regulations. Currently, the way we're looking at keeping the auto injectors readily and easily accessible, because that's what the House bill requires, is we're going to put a set in with our AEDs, our defibrillators. So that means they'll be readily and easily accessible to anyone that is on the campus during a school-sponsored activity should someone happen to have an allergic reaction.
So to access those EpiPens, does the alarm go off when you pull the door to the AED? Yeah.
It does. The alarm does go off when you open it, and it goes off when you close it. On some of the campuses, there's a key, so you can actually turn the alarm off to get the pen out and turn it back on.
I'm just curious.
Don't try sneaking in there.
Yeah, why not? Any questions from the board? Thank you very much. Ms. McClure, do we have a motion here?
I recommend the board approve revisions to TASB policy FFAC local as presented.
A second.
We have a motion and a second. All in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Awesome. Motion carries. All right, next on the agenda is information items. We have a calendar of events for information only, enrollment for information only, and any other further discussion from the board. Mr. Edwards? Sir. All right. Does anybody object to adjourning this meeting? If there are no objections, then the meeting's adjourned. Thank you.